Hello, hello. Welcome back to the work week. It's Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Reitlow here in dry Chippewa Falls, where we didn't get nearly the rain folks to our south got. Still, it was just kind of a cloudy, shall we say, not weather-friendly weekend for Memorial Day weekend. Hope you had fun just the same. We will have on the program later on. Dr. Kristen Lyerly joins us at 6:50 for our history lesson. Then at 7:06 to talk about some of the news headlines. She's running for Congress in the 8th District. We'll be hearing from 3rd District congressional candidate Katrina Shanklin and Congressman Mark Pocan coming up at 7:30, along with Hans Breitenmoser and guest Mike Stotts from the National Farmers Union, all about how Congressman Derrick Van Orden and other Republicans are saying they're not cutting benefits in the Farm Bill. Yeah, they are. But again, it's typical Washington, D.C. math, and we will explain that as well. Chad Holmes tells us what's coming up on his program on Bull Falls Radio. And Mr. Luke Mathers is in for Greg Bach as Greg enjoys a slightly longer weekend. So all kinds of fun and frivolity coming up 4.5 minutes from now, 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you then.
Classic.
All right, here we go.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Hans Breitenmoser.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Tuesday morning, May 28th, 2024, and it's another beautiful day to have you here up north, live from Lake Minnesota. From wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, through the app, or watching us on social media, or listening later on demand by podcast, thank you for taking us along to get the short work week started. I got a question for you. Was it a good Memorial Day weekend? Maybe it wasn't great. The weather certainly wasn't great, but maybe you had a good time nonetheless. We certainly did with family. Hopefully you did too. The other question, of course, would be, where is Greg Bach? But as we explained earlier, he's enjoying a slightly longer weekend. So those of you watching on Facebook, Twitter, or the Up North News YouTube channel, look to see if I press this button, who shows up in the other box. Of course, it's Luke Mathers and the world's largest Milwaukee Bucks cap. Mr. Mathers, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kreitlow. I don't think it's the world's largest. They've got some of those
It has
outrageously
got a
large
brim
hats,
on
you
it,
know?
man, that you could land a Harrier jet on. But that is, what you young kids wear these days, and I admire your fandom, continuing to wear that when the Bucks stopped playing, 60 days ago, or however long these playoffs appear to last. And by the way, I'm just gonna go right to the basketball. I'm gonna put the dagger in every Minnesota fan right now. Timberwolves fans are simply, Minnesota sports teams doing Minnesota sports things as they again bring their fans close to the mountaintop and then throw them off over the side, down 3-0 in the Western Conference Finals.
Western Conference Finals.
Against Dallas. So having twisted the knife a little bit toward friends and family on that side of the St. Croix, are you watching any of that, Mr. Mathers? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I was watching last night when the Celtics eliminated the Pacers. So Celtics are going to the finals.
So I'll go ahead and ask the guy in the Milwaukee Bucks cap. The Celtics were going to eliminate the Bucks, right?
Most likely, yeah. Most likely.
Healthy
to healthy.
It's such a dominant season for them this year.
Two healthy squads. If both Boston and Milwaukee were healthy, I have a feeling it would go to Game 7, and my Bucks fandom would be hopeful.
Would kick in then, yes. Look, if both teams were at the peak of health, I'd love to see that. That would be Ali Frazier. I really would.
Yeah.
But it is so tough to get to the playoffs now and have everybody healthy. It just doesn't seem to want to work that way.
It was a little extra sting yesterday too with Drew Holiday right at the center of the rebound that iced the game. Like Drew was right there in the heat of it, and that's tough to watch. But I'm happy for him. I'm very happy for Drew Holiday.
And that's the good attitude. You have to have that. If you'd like to join the show at some point here, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-75-CIVIC. You can call, text. You can use the Civic Media app. You can send us an email as well, radio@upnorthnewswi.com. So how was your holiday weekend?
It was moist. It was very wet. We weren't anticipating. Well, we've been watching the radar very closely the last couple of weeks. We are in the process of trying to paint the house.
Okay.
So it's been a whole saga of sanding and scraping and trying to prime. So no actual paint on the house, which is one of the goals of Memorial Day weekend, was to have some portion of the house already painted. But with how much rain we got, we thought it was best to let it continue to dry. So we were kind of in a holding pattern and went back into the basement where we're finishing the floors for yet another room. So
there's always something. I mean,
there's always something. There's
seriously.
always something to keep us busy.
That was our theme last week. There was always something. The pontoon's not in because the engine conked out. There were a couple of trees came down in a storm, so we had to pay for those to go away. We had to pay for the garage project that we had done. Home ownership, man. Ain't nothing like it.
Never ending. And when you get a fixer upper, it's kind of one of those things where you're just going to be just one more project right after the next one.
Fixer upper is a financial downer. Yes, it is. 6 a.m. temperatures around the state look like this: 55 up here in Chippewa Falls, 51 in Hayward and in Park Falls. Wausau's at 52, Green Bay 57, La Crosse 52, 55 in Rapids, 55 in Oshkosh, 51 in Madison, 52 in Waukesha. There were a couple of sports notes I wanted to pass along. Let's do the sad one first, then the really happy one. The sad one is the passing of NBA legend Bill Walton. I mean, again, if you're either of an age where you saw him play and saw how truly great he was, or you are young enough that he is just one of those NBA broadcasters that was larger than life. And he really was. I mean, the man lived life. No doubt about that. One of your favorites, I hope, as well. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily. I mean, I'm aware of him as a more of a commentator, but definitely a career and one of those voices that is, for a lot of folks, synonymous with basketball. So it's like big legend passing away, and yeah, it's one of those things that folks are getting up there, and there are more and more of these legends that we are passing away each week.
Let me just say, though,
Yeah.
Sherry mentioned it first. He passed away at 71. 71 doesn't seem so old anymore for us as it used to be. Because, but that's the sad news. But happy in that he lived life to its fullest. He was he was brash, he was bold, he was very colorful, and lived life on his terms. And bless him for it. Now the really good news. Luke, tell me you had a reaction to finding out that Major League Baseball umpire Angel Hernandez is taking his seeing eye dog and cane and exiting Major League Baseball. You couldn't come up with better sports news for me today. Absolutely.
See, I thought it was baseball related, but I thought you were talking about Craig Counsell coming home and getting the L.
Oh, no.
That's what
that
I
was
thought
good.
was going to be the big
okay.
news
No,
there.
okay.
But yeah, Angel retiring too is up there.
Angel Hernandez. Look, this has not been a good year for Major League Baseball umpires. It just hasn't. And you're going, oh, you're just saying that. You're just saying that. No, go to the video. This has been a horrific year already for baseball umpires. But Angel Hernandez is in a class of his own, a league of his own in terms of blown calls. And then, I mean, just making it all about him. The whole term, the ump show. If it hadn't been coined by the time he came around, he would have been the inspiration for it. So, yeah, as you can tell, I'm not the least bit. And I don't know the guy. I don't know the guy from a hole in the wall. I just know that if there is an altercation, not a verbal altercation on the field, it's usually Angel Hernandez trying to defend the indefensible in terms of calls that would get overturned if you had the robotic balls and strike zone or just any other improvement on the game. But yes, as for the game itself, for the Brewers heading down to Chicago. Now, again, they've already played against Craig Counsell's Brewers, but down in Chicago, where the Cubs took 2 out of 3. What?
Oh, you're saying, okay, back the previous series.
Yeah, I was rewinding the tape here.
I thought you were talking about yesterday. I was like, no, they're here in Milwaukee.
Yeah. So they Craig Counsell's Cubs beat them 2 out of 3 at Wrigley. But now this was Craig Counsell's homecoming. And I say that kind of liltingly with homecoming, like, this will always be home for him. I don't know. And I understand the point of, hey, he could get more money. Maybe he wasn't getting enough respect from management, whatever the case, but as a fan, I get to say, look, the Mets were going to make him very wealthy. The Brewers were going to make him very wealthy. I trust a lot of teams would have made him very wealthy to the point where he would say to the Cubs, hey, thanks anyway, but, I'm a Milwaukee kid. I'm not going to my division rival. And yet he did. And so for people going, oh, his image will rehabilitate, I just don't know that it will when you go to the Cubs. And so it felt really good. It was a great pitcher's duel. It really was. It was a classic pitcher's duel. But in the end, the Cubs lost their 5th straight and wasted a brilliant performance from their pitcher, Justin Steele. After Willie Adames hit a 3-run homer as part of Milwaukee's 5-run 8th inning, and the Brewers beat the Cubs 5-1. Milwaukee's Robert Gasser, fifth start of the season, I think. And he did a great job as well. Didn't get the win because he left when it was still scoreless, but still, your first place, Milwaukee Brewers, are 4.5 games ahead of the second place Cubs in the National League Central. And Mr. Mathers, that had to feel pretty awesome.
It was pretty good. And shout out to all the folks that had some very, very clever signs in the stands yesterday for Craig's quote unquote homecoming.
And you can quote on the radio, or
what? Born a Brewer, forever a traitor. I thought that one was just like that one cut deep, and I think it goes to your sentiment, Pat, where I don't know if his reputation around here is going to be getting any nicer in the next couple years.
What I remind people to go, well, Brett Favre. Well, Brett Favre went to the Jets first before he went to the Vikings. You know, if Brett Favre had gone, right to the Cubs or to the Bears, the same way with
that would have been fascinating.
That would have been amazing sports right there. And the same way, Jim McMahon, of course, is a Bears legend, but he ended up playing for both the Packers and the Vikings. I don't think he went to either. I forget where he went first after the Bears, but I don't think it was the Vikings. But again, this thing that Council did, it's something, that folks are not going to forget. Roger writes in on Facebook about being happy that Angel Hernandez, baseball's worst umpire, is retiring. And he also reminds us of the great line by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Airplane. Tell your old man to drag Walton and Lanier up and down the court for 48 minutes. I'd forgotten about that line. It is a great line in Airplane that Kareem gets to use. Because, again, Walton and Lanier were in a class of their own. But, back to the baseball. Yeah, I mean, look, we'll get used to seeing Craig Counsell there. And the fact of the matter is simply this. The Brewers are, as somebody else said, they're too young to know they're not supposed to be in first place. If you rolled the dice a few more times, the Cubs would be the ones 4.5 games in front. Then people would be looking at Craig Counsell going, oh yeah, veteran manager, he's got this team. We just happen to have a group that's young and scrappy and, might not let Craig Counsell be as good this year as he thought he was going to be. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I it's a lot of young pieces, and it's a lot of fun to watch the young pieces come together. And there's going to be some heartbreaking losses. It's a long baseball season, and so I know those are coming. But it's exciting right now.
Yeah. Coming up next, why Eric Hovde believes campaign rules are for the little people. Coming up next. But first, a reminder, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this beautiful Tuesday morning, when you're here, you're up north, live from Chippewa Falls on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. It was on this day in 1982 that Rocky III hit theaters. Sylvester Stallone could not get permission to use the Queen song, Another One Bites the Dust, and so he asked an upstart band from the Chicago area, Survivor, to write and record a song. And they came up with Eye of the Tiger for a movie that was released this day in 1982. Part of today's history lesson. We'll have the full edition of that coming up less than 30 minutes from now. Sharita Booker joins us now. Sharita, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great, thanks. Thanks again for joining us and telling us what all we're looking at and reading online. Same as always. We're going to start with one of the news stories that people are commenting about most, and then we'll get into a couple of the feature stories about life in Wisconsin. From a news story standpoint, I'm not really surprised that one of the stories that got the most engagements was when former President Trump answered a question and then had to backtrack on the answer. And I don't think a lot of people believe his backtracking. I think they believe the first answer. It's about birth control. Tell us more.
Donald Trump said he was looking at the possibility of restricting access to contraception, and he would have a policy on that very shortly. He also suggested that he would support the right of individual U.S. states to limit access to birth control. Jones said, "Oh my God, 2 steps forward, 10 steps backward. Enough." And Chris said, "Republicans can't seem to sleep at night if they don't have absolute control over women and their bodies." And he also left a little more in that comment, but I'll let you guys go look at that on our Instagram.
Then there's folks who are saying let's see, Big Cooper Toll did, saying, "You people just twist his words." To which Go-Go responded, "Yeah, the left is always doing that by," checks notes, "quoting him directly." Because again, this was an exact quote on TV. But we also had Milltown Monger saying, "No worries, birth control is a luxury for the rich," and on and on. So needless to say, a lot of engagement on that. Not just I'm just looking at the Instagram post, but certainly all over the place. And we've talked about that topic a few times. I sense it's going to come up a few more. But coming up for our next story that folks are excited about, and I certainly was when it started service, was the Borealis, the brand new train service from Amtrak.
Yep, that train service is now making stops across Wisconsin, the Twin Cities, and Chicago. It's the first new passenger train in 20 years and doubles the number of passenger rail options. Its daily route includes trips in La Crosse, or stops in La Crosse, Toma, Wisconsin Dells, Portage, Columbus, Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Airport, and Sturtevant. That post had about 600 likes on Instagram and almost 200 shares. Oh, I'm sorry, Facebook, actually. Terry said, "I've taken Amtrak 2 times now, one to Flagstaff and the other to Seattle. Love both trips. Now I have a reason to go to Mall of America." Tanya said, "Wish it would go all the way to Duluth, but this is great news."
And you know what? Someday it will, because I will say again that as a legislator, plans were underway for high-speed rail to go across Wisconsin, which would have connected Chicago to the Twin Cities through Eau Claire as well as La Crosse, and with an extension all the way up to Duluth. Obviously, Scott Walker scrapped all of that, but he's only delaying what is going to come at some point. So one of the comments was from Mary Clay Santino. I know her in the Chippewa Valley, saying, "We need a station in Eau Claire or Chippewa Falls," to which I'd say amen. We were already looking at possible sites there, and it will come. It's only a matter of time. Sharita, you're in the Milwaukee area. Have you taken the train at least down the Hiawatha to Chicago?
I have not. I've never been on the train, but that sounds like something I would love to do with my kids this summer.
I think you really should. I think it's great. In fact, Sherry did that when our kids were younger, where she parked the car and she drove down to as far as Toma and parked there and got on the train so that they could do the museum and the aquarium and make a little weekend of it, and then take the train back up. So it's just a great way to go. So I hope you take the chance to do that sometime. But of course, if you're not going there, maybe you're going to a beach, and there are beaches in Wisconsin. Would you expect any of them to be on a list of the best beaches in America? Well, you should, because we got one there, Sharita.
Yep, Schoolhouse Beach on Washington Island is the 86th best beach in America, according to a poll by FamilyDestinationsGuide.com. Located in Door County, the beach is known for its unique shoreline, which is one of only 5 beaches in the world covered in smooth, round stones instead of sand. That post had almost 500 likes on Facebook, tons of comments. Tara said, "Love this beach. Bring chairs, bug spray, and wear Crocs so the stones won't hurt your feet. It's beautiful." Lisa tagged some friends and said, "Ever been? It's 16 miles from Ellison Bay with the ferry. Maybe, question mark. Although I see a lot of comments about spiders, and there are a lot of comments about the spiders there."
Well, you've got dense woods right there, so I'm not a bit surprised. I mean, we were here on Lake Wissota. We get our share of spiders as well, throughout the course of the year. Nature's neat that way. But again, that's from familydestinationsguide.com. And you can find a link on our social media post about that great Door County destination and all the other places we like to cover through these social media posts. Sharita Booker brings those to you and much more. Sharita, have a great day. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, Pat.
And also, of course, as well as social media, we have our daily newsletter. Sign up for it at UpNorthNewsWI.com. Again, UpNorthNewsWI.com, where you can stay up to date on stories Christina Laurie has added to today. Today is National Burger Day, for example, and so has a story about, how much credit should Seymour, Wisconsin get for the invention of the hamburger, and also where are some of Wisconsin's best burgers on various lists. She also has a link about a story on how Green Bay bar owners might get 2 additional hours of service during next year's NFL draft, as some of them seek to be open until 4 a.m., so you can look for that story. And finally, a link to one of our past radio discussions about how Red Lobster wasn't killed because of endless shrimp. It was the vulture capitalists. And again, sign up for that newsletter over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. On Friday came the deadline for incumbent legislators to file paperwork if they're not running for re-election. It's a special little piece of paper that incumbents have to fill out so that they can't get to the filing deadline of a district and then not have a candidate to run because the incumbent waited until the deadline. So incumbents have an earlier deadline. And that way, if they file to say they're not running, other people who'd want to run in those districts now have time over the next few days here to collect the amount of signatures that are required. A lot of retirements, primarily from Republicans, but also from some Democrats. Some are running for other things, like Katrina Shanklin is leaving the legislature to run in the 3rd Congressional District. She's running in the Democratic primary there. We will actually hear from her in our next hour. She and Congressman Mark Pocan talked or held a press conference on Friday about the Farm Bill, and to set straight some of the things being said by Republicans like Congressman Derrick Van Orden when it comes to SNAP benefits. So when we visit at 7:30 with Hans Breitenmoser, a Lincoln County dairy farmer, and also he'll bring along Mike Stotts from the National Farmers Union, and we'll hear some clips from Congressman Pocan and Representative Katrina Shanklin all about the SNAP program and the Farm Bill. We'll unpack more of the headlines coming up after the Midwest Farm Report here on Up North News Radio. I got something here. Let's see.
Tried to amend my carnivorous habits. Made it nearly 70 days. Losing weight.
Welcome back to UpNorthNews Radio for this Tuesday morning, May 28th. So what do we owe the honor of Mr. Buffett's Cheeseburgers in Paradise? Oh, it's National Burger Day. Very nice.
Somebody got their request in last second.
Okay.
So this is what the default was set to.
I like it. I like it very much. Because it's also, we're going to mention
also
later.
where Mr. Buffett's having his burger today on National Burger
In
Day.
Paradise. Yeah, very, very good. Wow, you are just on top of your game today. Appreciate that very much. Let's unpack some of the headlines here at 6:35 on this Tuesday morning. Nice to have you along. Again, you can join the show at 855-75-CIVIC. 855-75-CIVIC. Send us a text, give us a phone call, use the Civic Media app, or put a comment on Facebook. We're on the Up North News Facebook page, the Civic Media Facebook page, the Up North News YouTube page, several other places. Come find us. We'd love to have your comment and your input on things. We're going to start with Eric Hovde, Senate candidate, who's been the beneficiary of a lot of TV ads lately. Now, some of them have been his ads directly. The man's got money after all. So, of course, you can run, truckloads of ads Memorial Day weekend, almost 6 months before the election. I noticed the latest ads are again trying to prop up his bona fides as a true son of Wisconsin. Here's where he went to school. Here's his home. Here's his McMansion, in the Madison area. So, just a Wisconsin kid through and through, other than that whole part about, being one of the most influential people in his, current hometown in Orange County, California. But he's obviously able to spend the money to try to burnish his image and try to, let us know that he cares about Wisconsin. But he's also benefiting, of course, from outside independent group spending by PACs, political action committees. And political action committees have, shall we say, looser rules on campaign finance money. In return for that independence of being able to, raise and spend practically unlimited money, corporate money, all kinds of things you and I would never allow in politics, but showed up until recently. They get that independence so long as the candidate and his or her campaign cannot communicate with, cannot coordinate with the PAC. The PAC is supposed to be an independent group that just happens to be running gobs of ads supporting somebody or calling out somebody. And it was noteworthy, shall we say, that there were these ads that, Eric Hovde's direct ads are all, light and fluffy and sunny, and look at me, I'm a good guy. The big bad independent PAC is running these things that are attacking Tammy Baldwin, declaring her a Madison hypocrite. Eric Hovde is also from Madison. The narrator says that, Baldwin told us to stay home during COVID, but, quote, used your money to fly to New York to live with her girlfriend at her lavish multi-million-dollar apartment. Note the emphasis on live with her girlfriend, wink. The narrator says Baldwin pretends she's for Wisconsin, but jets off to raise money from celebrities and hires lobbyists. And, this group has spent $1 million so far on media placement in its latest filing with the Federal Elections Commission. That pushes the group's efforts so far this year, according to WisPolitics, to $3.25 million. And in that latest FEC report, we find out who has been pretty much not the only funder, but almost the only and far overwhelming funder of the group, of this independent political action committee, this independent group, the Fix Wisconsin PAC, pretty much funded exclusively by Eric Hovde's brother. An earlier filing from the group, which was created after Eric Hovde formally announced his bid, showed that Stephen Hovde made a $1 million donation in February. That accounted for all but about $30,000 of what the group had reported that it had raised. So there's not supposed to be the coordination. They're supposed to be fully independent, and it's not to say a brother can't be independent from another brother, but what if the PAC is run by your brother, and at one point you were probably both paid handsomely from the same pool of money from a family business that was started by your grandfather, and you're now trying to paint yourself as a self-made man. And you do have millions to run your own ads, but this independent political action committee run by your brother, who's also benefited from the same family money, is running ads to attack your opponent. Sure seems to illustrate for some of us how, political rules are for the little people. And why, again, for all that Russ Feingold and John McCain went through to try to clean up money in politics, they were ultimately unsuccessful with the tact that they tried and the tactics that they tried. But like so many other things that are worth having in this country, it's going to come in fits and starts. There are going to be defeats. There are going to be setbacks. But don't think for a moment that this is an environment that we should accept. To say, well, McCain-Feingold got rolled back, and a lot of the post-Watergate rules got rolled back. Yeah, they did. This time. I also know that Roe v. Wade was supposed to be the law of the land for 50 years until it wasn't. And so the only way that we're going to get money out of politics, corporate money out of politics, and shall we say the money from American oligarchs out of politics, is just to keep hammering away, to keep pointing out that this is wrong. This is not independent. It makes a mockery out of independence. We're supposed to be a country of one person, one vote. Not $1, one vote. And while dollars don't vote directly, dollars, millions and millions of dollars out of one brother's pocket can pay for a whole lot of ads that influence a whole lot of votes. And this is a game we do not need to accept. We have a new example of Republican mischief, shall we say, when it comes to political appointments in Wisconsin politics. By now, I'm sure you're like, oh, he's not going to talk about Fred Pren again, that guy that was the holdover on the Natural Resources Board. And I'm not, except to say that this is kind of where all of this started, with Republicans who were appointed by Scott Walker thinking the rules don't apply to them. And so they're going to apply some new rules. They're going to find a loophole in the current rules, and they're going to get a conservative-led state Supreme Court to say, yep, that loophole is genuine. You can drive a truck right through it. Well, now the makeup of the Supreme Court has changed, which is why you see people like, Megan Wolf staying in place as the head of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, mostly because she's doing an excellent job and does not need to be a victim of party politics. But now we have this. Robert Atwell, a Scott Walker appointee to the University of Wisconsin Board of Regents, according to WisPolitics, will remain on the board for the foreseeable future. After Assembly Speaker Robin Vos advised him he can serve until his successor is appointed and confirmed. That's according to an email that's been obtained by WisPolitics. That blocks Governor Tony Evers from appointing a successor until the Republican majority Senate confirms one. And as we learned from the whole Fred Prenn affair, there was already collusion between Republican senators and Prenn and former Governor Scott Walker to block Evers from making an appointment and saying, well, if the Senate hasn't appointed somebody, then I guess the old person can stay in place even though his or her term has expired. It is a situation that, again, much like money in politics, needs to be changed. Somebody needs to run on a reform platform and say, we got to fix this. We can't have Republicans doing these things. We can't have Democrats doing these kinds of things. If there's a loophole, let's fix the loophole. The only way a loophole is going to get fixed is either an overwhelming majority by people who want to play by the rules, or it's going to take some bipartisanship, which in this case means it's going to take Republican legislators to stand up and say, you know what, this is not right. Let's fix this so that people can serve, so that cabinet secretaries can serve without worrying about being fired, so that people who are elected governor by the people of this state can have the appointments that voters want them to have. But we don't have that. We have instead Robert Atwell, who is one of two remaining Scott Walker appointees on the board, informing University of Wisconsin President Jay Rothman and others of the decision. Speaker Vos, Atwell writes, brought to my attention that the statute directs that in the absence of a resignation, regents remain in office until their successor is appointed and confirmed. Jay has recently confirmed this understanding. In light of that, I will remain on the board until I resign or my successor is seated, blah, 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 blah.
Has this guy not been paying attention for the last couple of years, Pat?
I think he's been paying plenty of attention and is saying, well, I guess I get to play this game now too.
He's just acting like he's just stumbling upon this.
Just stumbling upon it. And
it sounds like he was going to retire, Pat. And they told him, kind of, hang on, wait, we've got some breaking information for you.
Right. And he says, well, Jay, meaning Jay Rothman, the UW system president, Jay has recently confirmed this understanding. You know what Jay Rothman should have done then, 5 minutes after this letter came out? Is to say, yeah, I confirm the understanding because this is the system we've got and it stinks and I don't want you to stay. Now, I can't make you quit, Robert Atwell, but as president of the Universities of Wisconsin, I think you should step down. I think you should let the duly elected governor of the state of Wisconsin appoint a successor for your seat. You're not welcome. Get out. I'm not holding my breath waiting for Jay Rothman to send such a letter. I'm just saying he should have.
Oh yeah. That in an ideal world, that should have been the way. And in an ideal world, the president of the Universities of Wisconsin system would have a background in higher education. In my opinion, I would prefer.
There's that as well.
But there's hundreds of appointments from the Evers administration, from his first administration, that still are awaiting confirmation.
Still awaiting confirmation. Meanwhile, others had their confirmations rejected, sometimes after years of serving in the position already. Since Evers took office in 2019, the Republican-controlled Senate has rejected 22 executive branch nominations. That's the firing of regents like former Assembly Rep Dana Wachs of Eau Claire, businessman John Miller, and others. Republicans voted those latest ones down in March after they opposed Robin Voss on his successful effort to blackmail the UW system to pull back on programs surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion. And no, this was not politics as usual. In the previous 40 years, the Senate had rejected exactly 4 executive branch appointments. This needs to be fixed.
Well, it's almost as if these lawmakers, Pat, have just faced no accountability and held accountable to the lawmaker or to their voters. And it's going to be interesting to see if, with new maps, some of that accountability is going to come into play this next year.
And really, that's where it comes down to, is that you switched control of the state Supreme Court just over a year ago now in the election of Janet Protasewicz. That court is still, is slowly but surely examining things that the conservatives put together over 15 years of control of the courts, 14 years of control of the legislature. What I don't want to hear from people come November is, oh gosh, you guys didn't fix everything. You didn't fix everything fast enough. That's not how this works. You don't get instant gratification. It takes time to make these things happen. And that's going to happen with the state Supreme Court. You got the new maps through. More things are on the way, hopefully including fixing this very broken appointment system. Today's history lesson with Dr. Kristen Lyerly is next. You're Up North.
Making the best of every virtue and vice, worth every damn bit of sacrifice to get a cheeseburger in paradise. Cheeseburger in paradise.
And there she is now.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning. How was your weekend?
It was nice, really nice. I mean, the weather was crummy, but the weekend was good.
Okay. Yeah, we brought Luke on board for you here too. So.
All right.
Mm-hmm. So we are ready to go. More or less. Still kind of waking up, but we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke brought his hat with the brim, the special
The
brim.
great big brim. I know.
Greg sent me a picture from Washington, D.C.
Oh, nice.
He was at a baseball game with one of my friends from medical school.
Oh, that's so nice.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. All right, here we go. 10 seconds.
It's my party and I'll cry if I want to, cry if I want to, cry if I want to. You would cry too if it happened to you.
The president of the Wisconsin chapter of the Leslie Gore Fan Club is here, Dr. Kristen Lyerly, for us to note that on this week in 1963, just a few weeks after her 17th birthday, Leslie Gore would score a #1 single with It's My Party. Good morning, Dr. Lyerly.
And my 17-year-old is still sleeping till noon. I can't figure it out.
He doesn't have the pressure to come up with a hit record the way that others do. So,
He's no Taylor Swift, but we love him.
yeah. How was your holiday weekend?
It was nice. The weather was kind of crummy,
Mhm.
but I love Memorial Day because it is such an important day to sit back and think about the sacrifices people have made, like in a deep way. This is like a flag waving kind of weekend for so many of us, and it's the unofficial start of summer, but it's also that time just to talk to veterans who have been in combat situations, who have lost friends and loved ones, and just pull it together as a community.
You would hope so. Next week, we will mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And so to me, the two are, forever intertwined because of their proximity on the calendar. And looking at pictures from Normandy over the weekend, especially yesterday morning, really brings that point home. And I hope reminds more of us of, what are we doing here and what should we be doing here? And I hope people remembered that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We have a whole lot of 80-year-olds today. Check out this list of the next 4 people that turn 80 today. They're all born this day in 1944. I mean, this first one, not a bad start. Here's Gladys Knight, born this day 80 years ago in Atlanta. heard it through the grapevine before, some other guy came along and made the song his own, but not a bad job herself. Gladys Knight and the Pips. The Pips, by the way, made up of a brother and cousins. She's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class of 1996. Next person, also turning 80 today, played for many years in relative obscurity until a producer heard this song, put it in a love story subplot of what they were working on, and millions of Americans fell in love with this song by Billy Vera in 1985. No. Did I give you the wrong link? No,
You might have gave me the
Billy,
wrong one. Or did
No,
I
you
skip
could just-
over
Billy Vera,
one here?
right
Here we
there.
go.
Yeah, play that one. There you go.
What did you think I would do at
So,
this moment?
can you guess what
When you're
program,
standing
movie,
before me?
or otherwise this song was in 1985 that put Billy Vera in the forefront? Any guesses?
I feel like I should know the answer to this, but I
Mhm.
do not. Listeners, help us. Listeners.
No, they're not. I'm going to tell you. It's Family Ties. With
Oh, yeah.
Michael J. Fox and Tracy Pollan, who they later married and are still married to this day.
Mhm.
And so they put Billy Vera in it. He turned 80 today. Here's who else turns 80 today. John Fogerty.
Oh, wow.
He's written a few songs.
Left a good job in the city.
You would not have Tina Turner singing this song if John Fogerty hadn't written it. He's listed on Rolling Stone's list of 100 greatest songwriters at number 40 and 100 greatest singers at 72. Did pretty well with Creedence Clearwater Revival, then on his own. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He had Bad Moon Rising, Fortunate Son, Green River, Down on the Corner, Who'll Stop the Rain, Center Field, The Old Man Down the Road. Those three right there, turning 80, Gladys Knight, Billy Vera, John Fogerty, and Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani was not on any song hits whatsoever. All born on this day in 1944. And while we're in that kind of class of birthdays, little Marco Rubio is 53 years old today. So happy birthday, little Marco.
All the octogenarians and Marco.
And Marco, right. All right, let's get to a couple of singers who are a little, they're not quite 80 yet. Kylie Minogue, for example, is 56 years old today. Known in Australia as the Princess of Pop, and that country's highest selling female recording artist, which often draws comparisons to the late Olivia Newton-John. There was no rivalry between them. Both women have had very public fights with breast cancer. Kylie Minogue for 20 years now, but again, kind of has invented herself over and over again as the years go by. Real staying power. Colby Calais turns 39 years old today, a native of Malibu, California.
Stop me on the corner. Swear you hit me like a vision. I wasn't expecting.
She had a little bit of exposure to popular music before her own singing career. Her father, Ken, co-produced 3 Fleetwood Mac albums, Mirage, Tusk, and a little project called Rumors.
Oh, I've heard of
So
that.
yeah, so I think she's probably got a little bit of that in her blood as well. This is also the 67th birthday for Kirk Gibson, former LA Dodger, who, with injuries to both legs, leaving him a hobbled mess, he hit a pinch hit 3-2 pitch off of Oakland's Dennis Eckersley into the right field stands for a 2-run walk-off 5-4 win in Game 1 of the 1988 World Series and baseball immortality, as Jack Buck says, "I don't believe what I just saw." Again, the 1988 World Series for Kirk Gibson, turning 67 years old today. And one, Kristen, for you as an OBGYN, on this day in 1934 in Ontario, the Dion quintuplets are born and go on to become the first quintuplets to survive infancy.
Yikes.
Miracles of modern medicine.
Yeah, I know. I see twins and I'm like, ooh, okay, we're going to have to watch these folks closely. I can't even imagine.
Imagine 1934.
I know. People were afraid of pregnancy back then. I mean, people are afraid of pregnancy now too, but different story, different reasons.
I know. So I was, I looked at that and like, I'd heard of them, but I did not realize it was that long ago. So, all right. Well, we're going to talk more about today's headlines coming up with Dr. Lyerly in just a bit. And then later, we'll have Hans Breitenmoser here, along with a guest from the National Farmers Union. We'll also hear from Congressman Mark Pocan and congressional candidate Katrina Shanklin from a Friday press conference. All of them talking about the Farm Bill and the SNAP program. That and much more in the second hour of Up North News Radio from Courier Newsroom and distributed by the Civic Media Radio Network, live from Chippewa Falls. We'll be back.
Rolling, rolling, rolling on a river.
Beat up.
This is like the olden days with Luke. You mean
I
Luke?
know.
Yeah.
I know, but now they've got this setup where I don't think he's hearing us.
We can say anything we want about him.
No,
Sorry about that. I don't know how I missed clicking on that one. Just went too fast.
That's all right. That's okay. It happens. Reset the board to 0. This show has gone how many days without clicking on the wrong link or something. Usually it's Pat. Some days it's Luke.
Most days it's not Luke, and I can take comfort in that.
Yeah, if that's what you need to make yourself feel better, that's totally fine. Good with
What
that.
I need to make myself feel better right now is some coffee.
Go get
I'll
some
be right
coffee.
back.
We'll see you.
Aurora was trying to say hello in the middle of that last segment.
That's right. We got
Yeah.
We're gonna get the pupper back on here. So, 7:03 as we wait for the arrival of Brittany Merlot and Aurora the puppy. Dr. Larley, any headlines this week, highlights that we should be looking for from you?
We're going to Madison to drop off my papers when we get off the air.
When's the deadline?
June 3rd. They
June
extended
3rd.
it to June 3rd because of
Okay.
the weekend.
Okay.
hmm
But you're doing yours ahead of time. So good
We
for you.
are, we've got enough. And just to be on the safe side, gives us
Mhm.
a little bumper room.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a Tammy Baldwin event tonight in
Really?
Green Bay.
Okay. Wow.
It's just always, it's go, 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 go.
Yeah, we know. We've met you.
But we're having so much fun. It's
Mhm.
wild, Pat. I mean, the people and the stories, and it's a blast. We're having a great time.
No, that's awesome. What did I say we were going to do here? Louisiana. That was it.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Luke. Can you-
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you could hear me. I just saw a clip. I'm wondering if maybe you can get it, but I haven't. How long is this clip? Oh, it's almost 2:50 or 2 minutes. Never mind. It's CNN's
Okay.
Breonna Keeler pushing back on a Louisiana state senator about this, saying your state is 46 out of 50 for maternal expectancy. Why aren't you tackling that? I mean, I'm gonna give you the link here, but I don't know.
All right. Do you have a time cue?
No, I would just start at the beginning, keep our mics open, and we'll dump out of it when it's
Okay.
So I'll put that in. There it is in the chat, and there is Ms. Merlot checking out the back of her lottery scratch-offs. What do you got there?
Oh, it's just my phone.
Oh,
Look at
phone. Okay.
Looking at rain.
Rain.
It's so
Riveting.
wet here. It's like we've got flooding in
Do
Green
you?
Bay.
We hardly got anything up here in Chippewa. Just everything seemed to go to the south of us.
It was
They-
constant on Saturday. It just kept coming.
Oof. All right.
Yeah, that was rough. Did you hear about
Sunday.
the tornado south?
In Kakana.
Ooh,
Those
all
two, yeah,
10
on Tuesday.
seconds. Here we go.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Lesotho studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Hans Breitenmoser.
With real information, good conversation, unabashedly Wisconsin on this Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. Nice to have you along for the second hour of Up North News Radio across the Civic Media Radio Network, through the app, social media, as a podcast. However you got here, welcome for our shortened work week with Greg Bach extending the weekend just a bit. So Luke Mathers is here stepping in. Kristen Lyerly, our friend, our doctor, our congressional candidate, will talk about what's happening in Louisiana and the whole mifepristone legal battle coming up. But first, Brittany Merlot is here too, meteorologist. But first, where's Aurora? Where's the puppy?
She's napping. She's napping over in the corner.
Oh,
so
see,
maybe I'll bring her on the screen when she's not napping, but she's napping over in the corner.
Okay, well, in that case, allow me to do a dramatic, only slightly dramatic recreation of when Luke first turned on the camera, and I could see that Luke was filling in there in the studios of WAUK in Waukesha. I said, "Good morning, Luke," and there's a puppy in the studio. There's a puppy. It's like, and then
That's
Aurora
pretty
went to the
accurate.
corner and took a nap, and so that cute segment of the show is all done with now. So unless Aurora wakes up.
Let sleeping dogs lie.
Yes, exactly. Brittany, it was a great weekend here in Chippewa Falls. We got a little light rain on and off, but not nearly what other folks got. Kristen, you said it was kind of almost a washout in Green Bay over the weekend.
We've got some flooding here.
Yeah. So, Brittany, how'd the weekend go for you? And what do we expect from here?
It was just a wet, gross kind of weekend. I
Gross.
mean,
Yes. Yeah.
that's just the best way to put it. I mean, I did a lot of indoor chores on Sunday, unfortunately, because a lot of the outdoor plans were canceled as about 2 to 3 inches of rain fell, especially into the Fox Valley. A lot of places getting slammed. And even Milton, a tornado touched down on Sunday night, right around 5:30 p.m., doing damage to some homes there as well. So I know that they still came together for a Memorial Day parade on Monday, even in between the cleanup of that debris. So it's crazy to see communities really coming together. That tornado was not expected, and no severe weather was supposed to be happening on Sunday, just some heavy rainfall. But you never know this time of year. So always stay weather savvy. Today, we do have chances for some more scattered showers here this afternoon and some more rumbles of thunder and some storms this evening. Again, none are supposed to be severe, but we could get some heavy downpours of around 1/4 of an inch. And of course, it's going to stay mostly cloudy today and cooler, with highs still staying stuck in those mid to upper 60s. But we will see some sunshine midweek and we will get warmer. But I'll have all of those details. I'm going to hold off until tomorrow.
Okay. We'll take a little warm break. Still not not hot, but not winter. That's all I got to go with here. Is,
The in between.
We're stuck in weather in seasonal limbo is what
Yep.
it is. But we'll see if we can't earn our way out of that soon. Brittany, thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
We're going to be talking in just a bit about electric vehicles and charging stations and what exactly is the business model going forward for places that are better known as gas stations as we move on to EVs. We'll tackle that question in a bit, but while Dr. Lyerly is here, an OBGYN, and we frequently talk about reproductive rights and the issues involved in them, and we know that the U.S. Supreme Court is weighing a case involving the so-called abortion pill, mifepristone, and many people noting, Kristen, that it is a medication that is safe, is tested, is effective, and yet Louisiana, because of course it's always going to come from the deep South first. Louisiana has a bill being pushed through the legislature to categorize these pills as, quote, controlled substances. That's the kind of thing you do with illicit drugs, and yet they're doing this for something that you would provide to patients in need.
This is a bill that was actually signed into law in Louisiana. And it's just what you said, Pat. This is a safe, effective medication that's been around for over 20 years. We have plenty of use data, so we know that it is effective not only in providing abortion care, but in helping to manage miscarriages for people who are suffering with heartbreaking situations. And here they are in Louisiana, putting it on a list of dangerous controlled substances, things like heroin, oxycodone, things that doctors actually have a registry that every time we prescribe a narcotic, we have to check in with the registry. And so these medications are tracked. And that is one of the biggest problems here is now we have essentially a pregnancy tracker. Anyone who seeks these kinds of medications and gets a prescription in Louisiana will be on a list. It's the chilling effect, really, that they're going after here. They're not worried about the safety of the medication. They say they are. They say they're trying to protect pregnant people. But the truth of the matter is they are trying to scare, intimidate, and create confusion. So not only will people not seek the kind of care that they need, but people won't be willing to help them. This is a crisis.
Now, there is already this case about mifepristone before the U.S. Supreme Court that they want the justices to say, basically to the FDA, you're wrong. You may have tested it and found it safe, but we hereby deem it, unsafe. So there isn't really a legal need for this Louisiana law to become the test case for mifepristone, but I wonder if this is just another legal attack, or is the legal attack that, hey, since the FDA has ruled this safe, that this state law is null and void? Is that the more likely path for this law?
I think that remains to be seen. I mean, ultimately, we know that this is clearly not a medical step. This is not something that they did out of good medical practice. They did this out of pure politics to, as I said earlier, to fear or to create fear and to intimidate people. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with Louisiana, how it plays out with what's going on with the Supreme Court right now, and the bigger battle over abortion care ultimately. But, it all ties into contraception care and women's health in general, all of those other things that really are on the line. If you've been paying attention, you know that contraception is something that is in the balance, just like abortion was a few years ago. Now, it's entirely possible that come November, we could lose access to our ability to get contraception. And then what?
Then we enter a whole new realm frankly, for this election cycle, not just for this country, not just for women, but for a cycle with a Supreme Court, a U.S. Supreme Court that has already shown they're willing to fly their flag, quite literally, about where their political beliefs are, and just throw everything for a loop if that's the way that this comes out. So I have a feeling you're going to be a very busy person over the next. Some folks are saying it could be, they're not going to necessarily wait till the end of June. It could be like any day we start seeing rulings on cases like this one, and it's not going to be pretty, I don't think.
Well, and keep in mind that this Supreme Court mifepristone case, also, it's not just about the abortion pills, but it's about undermining the FDA. The FDA went through a rigorous medical process, a rigorous scientific process to approve this medication. If the Supreme Court, a non-medical body, then declares that this medication isn't safe, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
The FDA is invalidated.
Right. If the expert, what experts, you expert, we, this, theocracy wannabe will decide what you can and cannot have. Mm-hmm. To her great credit, CNN anchor Breonna Keeler pushed back on a Louisiana state senator who was a primary sponsor of the bill, saying in so many words, don't y'all have better things to do?
Look, respectfully, abortion, again, is illegal already in Louisiana. We're trying to make sure that folks are not.
So then why make it a Schedule 4 then?
What? Because we want to make sure that physicians and nurse practitioners and physicians assistants have the opportunity to prescribe the medication. We need to make sure that these medications are used, and there's no doubt. But even in states where abortion is not illegal, you have a 10-week period where it's not supposed to be written without seeing a doctor at all after 10 weeks of gestation. And we've got to make sure that women are being cared for, or being and checked for ectopic pregnancies when they are being used as well. And I think that's important that we, again, make sure that we're maintaining the doctor-patient relationship rather than having a friend or someone bring medication into a state. That is concerning in and of itself, and quite honestly, it was illegal prior to this legislation passing and hopefully being signed into law shortly. A prescription medication requires a prescription by a doctor, a nurse practitioner, or a physician assistant.
Yeah, all laws that were already in place, right? And the Schedule 4 is not something you initially had in there. But let me ask you this: you talk about the importance of caring for women. Your state is 46th out of 50. For maternal expectancy. So when you're talking about there being better care for women, I mean, why aren't you tackling that instead?
We are continuing to do as much as we can on pushing maternal health care into the forefront, and make sure that we're doing everything possible to, within our budgetary means, to ensure babies
that's a good place to stop.
Born.
That's a good place to stop right there. We're doing everything we can within our budgetary means.
I mean, there's only so much money, and we have to spend it on the things that we care about. And, women and children and families, they don't rate as high as, the other things.
The other things, like, again, making decisions that, doctors and scientists had been making previously that we want to overrule.
About women.
Right. I mean, he says it all so smoothly. He's rehearsed these points over and over again, but the numbers don't lie. 46th out of 50. For maternal expectancy. That's a fancy way of saying moms die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, moms die, especially in the South. And, new data came out of Alabama. So just down the road, 21%, their residency applications are down 21%. That means that 1/5 of the people who might have gone to Alabama to study and to want to provide care in the future have decided, I'm staying out of this state. We're seeing this all over the country. And in fact, we're seeing it in Wisconsin as well because of our severe restrictions. We know that women who live in states with abortion bans are 3 times more likely to die, 3 times more likely to die related to their pregnancy because they're not getting the care, the health care that they need. Abortion is health care. And I know it's hard to talk about, but we have to talk about it. In this political scenario that we are living in right now, we have to have these conversations because literally people are dying, families are being torn apart, and we have to do better.
Coming up next, we'll talk about the future of EVs and charging stations and gas stations right after this on Up North News Radio, live from Chippewa Falls. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
I have opinions about this, Pat.
Yay.
I'm not talking about women's health care and abortion anymore. Now I'm talking about EVs.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, you are getting good at this politics thing. Now I'm an expert in this because I say I am.
No, because I own an EV.
Okay, that too. Good. Let's see. Where did you go?
Hey, Louisiana woman,
Mississippi man,
we get together every time we can. The Mississippi River can't keep us apart. There's too much love in this Mississippi heart.
Oh boy.
This was going to be like this uplifting, happy moment of Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn releasing this song on this day in 1973.
Whole other
Louisiana Woman,
dimension.
Mississippi Man. Yeah, it's seen so totally different now where Mississippi Man says, Louisiana Woman, you can't do what you want. I own you.
Can you park on the river and make sure that when they're crossing over that they have, contraception and information so that they are safe when they are practicing their love?
All right.
These are some of the ideas that I have.
You have ideas, and you even have ideas about electric vehicles, which we're gonna share next year. The headline from late last week says Quick Trip is going to become a big player in EV charging, thanks to a grant program. The Wisconsin DOT awarded $23 million in federal funds to support the state's first steps in building a statewide charging network. The La Crosse-based Quick Trip convenience store chain was awarded nearly half of the 53 grants designed to cover 80% of the cost of installing the charging stations. Private businesses pick up the balance. There are 23 other businesses that also got grants through the funding, all part of the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, a Biden administration initiative that aims to build 500,000 electric vehicle chargers along the nation's highways and throughout their communities. All that from Carl Ebert writing in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. But before I launch it to the two of you, what really caught my eye was a tweet from Tyler Hendricks, somebody I really like to read his posts. And he put up in so many words, that this is all fine. But what does Quick Trip then do for people who are used to stopping there? You gas up, that takes 5 minutes. You grab what you want and you go on your way. What does Quick Trip become when you've now got to wait 15 to 30 minutes for a charge? And can they compete if McDonald's next door gets charging stations? How does this whole infrastructure look in the future? And Kristen, as an EV owner, you have thoughts.
I do have thoughts. I have an EV, and we had the challenging situation of going to pick it up and not having charging stations to stop and charge on the way home. So we didn't make it home from Milwaukee. We had to leave the car in Manitowoc on the way home.
No.
I know, but I mean, this is all part of owning an EV and the range anxiety that a lot of people have, and deservedly so, as I experienced on my first trip. So I'm really excited to hear that Quick Trip is thinking about this. And frankly, I think this is a giant opportunity for Quick Trip. Look at what they've done with their convenience store brand and how they really have turned the store not into just a place where you stop and get gas, but they have good food, not just good food, but good healthy food. Maybe this is where Quick Trip branches out and becomes more like a McDonald's, more like a place where you can stop and hang out for that 15 to 30 minutes while you charge up.
Well, that's exactly it. Here's the exact tweet, and then I want Luke's 2 cents on this. Tyler writes, the question I've always had about Quick Trip is what they do when EVs take precedence on the road over gas engines. Do they basically become a restaurant you wait at while you charge, or does McDonald's put in chargers and get into vehicle fueling? I thought that was a good point, Luke, that this is, you build a model on gassing up, which is a relatively short thing. And yeah, the Quick Trip's done a lot to grow and burnish their image, but is it the same when you basically have to turn yourself into a restaurant? You're going to have to put some seats in there now.
I don't know about that. Do you know how long some Quick trips can take with Wisconsin Goodbye? Like you could get a real good charge on your EV with, you get familiar with the cashier instead of see you next time. It's
we'll see you in 15 minutes. Yeah.
And then you forgot something, so you pop back in, boom, you're already half battery and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what their new tagline is going to be. It's going to be, hey, charged up to see you next time. No,
there you go.
Nothing. Okay. Never mind.
You better get paid for workshopping some of those taglines.
No, clearly, I don't. And that's where, again, being recent purchasers of a hybrid, where I mean, it's just so nice. It's you really feel like you're getting the best of both worlds at this point. But this network is only going to grow and grow. This is not Betamax. This is not Laserdisc. This isn't something to go, hey, remember EVs? I mean, look, obviously anybody can eat their words about something, but I don't think we're going to be saying that. I think we've got this. So you may as well build the network and stop at your Quick Trip EV. Whereas Alicia writes in, yep, your Quick Trip cashier knows you by name, and it's true.
Yeah. It's a whole different way of thinking about cars, though. We think about cars in one way. Our parents thought about cars in a different way. Our kids are going to think about cars in a whole new way. So it's just a different frame of mind and a real opportunity for a progressive organization. I never thought I would say this, a progressive organization like Quick Trip, which is, I mean, let's be honest, we're all Wisconsin proud to see what they've done. And some of the Quick Trips already have EV chargers there.
Yes.
So how exciting for Quick Trip to be on the forefront of what is certainly to be the future of travel.
And by the way, for folks, I know there are people who are talking back to their radio right now that the Zillow family that that runs Quick Trip, they give primarily to Republicans and conservatives and all that. Well, yeah, they do now because Republicans have been in charge for 14 years. They were donors of mine when I was in the legislature. Some businesses are very philosophical, others are very incumbent minded. And, look to work with incumbents or, particular challengers. So I'm not going to ascribe a particular political philosophy just yet, because again, you've got this Wisconsin brand, much like, just like the Culver family over at Culver's, put them in the same category by and large. And so I'd like to see this all work and not just say, well, it's just McDonald's everywhere now and you charge up your vehicle there.
Mhm.
It would work better if we had more Wisconsin-run businesses. Quick check on sports at 7:27. Willie Adames hit a 3-run homer in a 5-run 8th inning. The Brewers beat the Cubs 5-1 on Monday, and Craig Counsell's return to American Family Field. I was away from the house and the TV at the time, you guys, so I did not. I wanted to feel the moment when he came out and was introduced, and I mean just the chorus of boot. But I didn't see it. Luke, I don't know if you watched the game and saw it. And yes, I'm delighting too much in it. But
I saw it on social media. I was listening to the game, so I wasn't watching.
Okay. I don't know. Kristen, tell me I'm a terrible human being for enjoying any Craig Counsell getting booed.
You're a terrible human being.
Thank you.
Try to be nicer.
Okay, I'm going to try to work on that. I'm going to try to work on that with everybody but Craig Counsell. How's that? All
There
right.
you go. There you go.
I think we're
Baby
doing
steps.
okay. Ultimately, I think we're doing pretty good.
We are doing pretty. Come on, we're in first place, 4.5 games ahead of the Cubs.
Yep.
All
So
right?
what's the problem?
So we are exceeding expectations, and Craig Counsell is not living up to his expectations.
and maybe during the second half of the season, we'll be rocking it. I mean, that'll be something new.
I would like that very much. And again, have Craig Counsell watching October baseball from his living room.
Let it go, Pat. You got to let it go.
Very happy. Not a chance, Kristen. Not a chance. Have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you a little later.
Thanks. See you later.
We'll be hearing from Mark Bocan and Katrina Shanklin as part of a segment with Hans Breitenmoser and Mike Stotts from National Farmers Union next. You're up north.
Side of town. Oh, we gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher. Hey, we gonna rock down to Electric Avenue.
I see what you did there.
No, I know. He's got a way. He's got a way.
Rocket in the daytime.
Yep. So we don't give him that outlet as much anymore, So
You guys, seriously, we went to Milwaukee to go pick up our EV, and it was winter.
I just can't.
And
Oh, geez.
we made it. We got to West Bend, and I was like, the battery is dying too fast. So I called the dealership, and they were like, "It's fine.
It's
Don't worry
fine."
about it."
Mhm.
I got to Manitowoc, and I was on not really fumes. I don't know.
Yes.
What would you say? Like
Electrons,
electrons.
atoms,
Particles.
particles.
I'm like, guys, there's a problem. They're like, don't worry about it. I'm like, it's supposed to get 200 miles to a charge. They're like, don't worry about it. We went back and forth with the dealership for probably a month. Turns out it's just because the battery doesn't do all that well in cold weather.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, which we now know and appreciate much more than
We
we
didn't
did.
know it at the time, though,
We
and neither did the
really-
dealership.
Really did not. Really did not.
Yikes.
So yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, you go have fun and have a safe trip. Happy trip down to. You are going down along with it, I assume, and doing. What is your Tammy thing is in Madison?
Tammy thing's in Green Bay.
You're going down to Madison, then back to Green Bay for the Tammy event.
Yeah, that's what we do. We're everywhere, Pat.
Wow, that's amazing. Good for you.
Uh-huh.
Have
Yep.
fun. All right.
Thanks.
See
Good
ya.
to see you, Luke.
Good to see you too, Doctor.
All right. We got a Hans. We got a Mike. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. How about you, Pat?
Very good. Thanks for being here again.
Glad to be here.
Hans, you with us here? Where'd you go, Hans?
Uh-oh.
Oh, he's muted as well here. Let's see. Okay. He might still be connecting, so we'll give him a little time. We got 45 seconds till we're back here.
All right.
And hopefully Hans can hear this as well. Congressman Mark Pocan and Katrina Shanklin held a press conference on Friday talking about the Farm Bill and SNAP, so I'm going to be playing a couple of snippets from that as well. So there you are. Hans, how are you?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, Hans.
Good morning. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Yeah, glad to do it.
All right. 15 seconds.
Now my dog's starting to growl again.
That's all right. Welcome back to Up North News Radio. It's a dog day. I didn't realize that Aurora's in the studio with Luke, and Hans has got a friend over there. Morning, Hans Breitenmoser. Who's your friend?
This is Fern.
This is who? I'm sorry.
Fern.
Fern. Okay. Hi, Fern. What kind of dog is Fern?
She's a Great Dane.
Great Dane. Okay, I can just see the nose and the face in there. Very friendly. All right. How's your field work going up there?
What field work, Pat?
A little wet?
Well, it's wet. It's very wet. We did get another 38 acres of corn planted on Saturday afternoon, evening, and just before it started raining again. And of course, Sunday it rained, and yesterday it rained. So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Rain came down. Yep. Well, thanks for taking a break from the waiting while we talk about the Farm Bill, which we know continues to be about 7 months late at this point. Still got to get done this year. And you brought along again our friend Mike Stranz, Vice President for Advocacy from the National Farmers Union. Mike, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Glad to be here. Hope you had a good long weekend and that things are nice on the lake.
Yeah, things were beautiful on the lake. I mean, not for me. Outboard engine conked out, but we'll see if we can't get that fixed up. And
that's what oars are for.
That's what oars. Yes, on that pontoon, it'll work so well. Mathers.
Come on, Pat. Yeah, I want to see you try to get the pontoon going with an oar. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, exactly. Mike, let's get a reset on the Farm Bill, which is a massive program. It is designed to attract bipartisan support because it has to be both rural and urban. There's farm programs, there's nutrition programs, there's conservation programs. These things determine the markets, exports, everything. It's designed to reach consensus. And yet this time around, between House Republicans calling for cuts and Senate Democrats looking for investments, things aren't looking great from Chippewa Falls, but how are they looking from the National Farmers Union standpoint at this particular point in time?
So last Thursday night and early Friday morning, the House Agriculture Committee had a markup of their draft version of the Farm Bill. That markup went for about 13 and a half hours, and at about 1 a.m., they voted on a 31 to 22 vote to approve or to pass their bill out of committee. And it would include cuts to nutrition. It would repurpose some climate dollars away from climate programs and use them more generally in conservation and elsewhere, and make some other big changes, including some adjustments to the farm safety net. So the House committee has moved. Now it's time for the Senate Agriculture Committee and the full Senate to take action. So they've got some work to do.
Very much so, especially when you hear, the things that Senate Democrats would like to do. Before we hear comments from Congressman Pocan and congressional candidate Katrina Shanklin, Hans, wanted to get your thoughts on what you've been reading up on in terms of the House Ag Committee markup and the differences in viewpoints, shall we say.
Well, I don't know. Again, we've had this conversation before. We know that the Farm Bill is a big, important thing that a lot of people don't understand how much it impacts, the lives of people in our rural areas. And you've got, one chance to get it right because it lasts for a few years. So moving the needle on conservation and on climate and on the nutritional side, is very important, and to eliminate some of these programs and to reduce them is a little ridiculous. And this all goes back to, on the farm side of things, on the production side of things, we talk about antitrust legislation and what it's doing to the rural economy. Some of these safety nets are needed very, very much so because of the fact that we don't have the political will to move the needle on antitrust legislation and change some of the ways that we, pay for some of the ag products that we all consume.
Yeah, and so it's what led to a press conference on Friday from Wisconsin Congressman Mark Pocan, a Democrat who has endorsed Democratic candidate and state representative Katrina Shanklin. Representative Shanklin is one of 3 Democrats looking to run against Derrick Van Orden, along with Rebecca Cook and Eric Wilson. They will all square off in the August primary. But Mark Pocan brought Katrina Shanklin along on Friday's presser, in part to take on something that Derrick Van Orden's been posting, saying that the Democrats on the House Ag Committee are flat out lying about the Farm Bill. We are not cutting SNAP benefits. And so in the press conference, I asked Congressman Mark Pocan to explain to Congressman Van Orden what exactly constitutes a cut in SNAP benefits. And here's what Congressman Pocan told me.
This is, the classic Madison, Washington kabuki dance when it comes to talking about this, but real people get it way more than politicians. So Derrick is again saying there is no cut to the SNAP program, but for the next 5 years, there will be no increase to the SNAP benefit. Now, unless Derrick is going to figure out how to magically make sure there is no inflation in the next 5 years, if you get $6 a day, and in a year you still have $6 a day, and in 5 years you have $6 a day, milk is going to go up and other commodities are going to go up, and you will be able to buy less and less because of a specific provision the Republicans have that doesn't allow for any increase in benefit. In addition to it, there is a cut to the summer EBT program that does help kids who won't be in school, who normally would have got free or reduced lunch. So that is the specific language why, only a politician would say it's not a cut if in a year or 5 years you can buy less with that amount of money, because I'm sure Derrick will somewhere claim that there is inflation going on. And I will agree with him. There is inflation going on, but if there is, and you don't address it, you clearly know what you're up to.
So Mike Stranz from the National Farmers Union, not looking to put you guys in any kind of a partisan box necessarily, but where I'm getting at is the notion that you can't just be talking about real dollars and ignore inflation when you're talking about the Farm Bill and the things that are in it. And I would like to think that you and others just want members of Congress from both sides to be more forthright, a little more honest about what's happening with those dollars year after year after year.
Well, the Farm Bill is a chance to make updates to programs, but when the main savings or the political push seems to be behind making cuts to nutrition programs, we're starting on the wrong foot right away there. So to cast this as the Farm Bill needs to cut nutrition in order to pay for other programs, that's a non-starter politically. It got through the committee, sure, but that sort of approach isn't going to work on the House floor when a bunch of Republicans are going to vote against the Farm Bill no matter what, and it's not going to attract many Democrats, if any, on the House floor when it comes to a vote like that. So making that assertion that it's not a cut when there's clearly a reduction in benefits going on down the road, that's not a good way to start building a bipartisan bill. No, and it is something that we've seen consistently. The other cut I want to play from Friday's press conference is from State Representative Katrina Shanklin, candidate for Congress, when I asked about the SNAP program, because people I think quite unfairly go, oh, you mean food stamps for all those, urban families, and that, that it doesn't do anything for us. And the numbers clearly show otherwise. And this is what Representative Shanklin had to say. And then Hans, will come to you.
In terms of rural communities benefiting from SNAP, we know that for every dollar we fund in SNAP, it generates almost $2 in local economic activity. And a lot of that really creates local jobs in rural communities where the economy is strengthened, I would say dually, by that extra $1 or $2 in benefit from that $1 investment. These are places where they may not have large manufacturing companies or processing plants, but when we have that spending at the local mom and pop Main Street grocery store, we know that that doesn't just help the family who's being fed, but also the supply chain within the community, from the business to the money that they're spending in other businesses on Main Street. And so I would say, SNAP is incredibly beneficial, not only to urban and suburban communities, but rural. That's why there's such a strong coalition there had been a strong coalition of both Democrats and Republicans strongly supporting it. It covers the majority of the Farm Bill. There is a reason it was intentionally the Farm Bill has always included SNAP first, and it's because that's how you get the votes to support agriculture and food security in communities across Wisconsin and the country.
Right. And so, Hans, again, it is just being mindful of this needs to be an example of how the best of us that we're supposed to see in elected office work together. And I don't think we're seeing that right about now.
No, I don't think we're seeing it either. And it's so important this is where we really need to be seeing it, because this is such a big deal and such an important thing for rural communities. And I think, as was stated earlier, we need to look at these dollars as investments, because they not only help the people who are getting them, but they help the communities that they go into at the ground level. It's the best way for public-private partnerships to work, is when that money gets close to the ground, because it will get invested in those local areas.
It's noted in the Hill that big lobbying groups have spent $400 million so far lobbying Congress on a new farm bill. Rebecca Cook noted it in a post that said, we need a farm bill that delivers for family farms in communities across Wisconsin, not one built around subsidizing agricultural conglomerates and prioritizing corporate profits. Now, as Congressman Pocan told me on Friday, again, this particular farm bill fight, Mike, is not focusing on monopoly power and things like that. It's about all these other programs and getting them funded. So, Mike, from a National Farmers Union standpoint, what's the best case scenario going forward?
Well, like Hans said before, we need to get at the monopoly issues that make so many of the other factors in agriculture so much worse, by building volatility when you've got just a few companies controlling big chunks of the marketplace. The House bill that made it through committee this week didn't touch that, didn't do anything to try to address those monopoly competition issues. The Senate side, however, does have some language in their farm bill that would put greater emphasis on enforcement of the Packers and Stockyards Act, put more enforcement of ensuring there's competition in the seed sector. Things like that are included in the Senate bill, or the draft that we're hearing about, and are not part of the House bill that passed last week.
One of the things that we discussed on Friday is the way the Biden administration has really tried to act as on behalf of consumers more than pretty much any recent administration in memory, in terms of going after things like excess credit card fees, junk fees, ticket fees, all kinds of other things that have that kind of monopoly power attached to them that drives up cost for consumers. It's not big and flashy, but it's effective in showing that you're fighting for the consumer. Is that something that either the Biden administration is currently messaging, or something that they could be doing to look pro-consumer in this farm bill fight, or are they simply letting this play out between the House and Senate at the moment?
I think there's a big emphasis across the administration. I don't think there is a big emphasis across the Biden administration to go after the monopolies. And there's a lot of supporters out there and enthusiasts for this out there as well. Farmers Union was just part of the anti-monopoly summit here in Washington last week, where we heard from the chair of the FTC, the chief antitrust enforcer at the Department of Justice, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau head. there's a lot of initiative within the administration. They've made some strides towards this. We've seen it in agriculture, and you see the headlines in other sectors of the economy too. So it's not as much part of the Farm Bill as it should be. And we've been calling for a competition title in the Farm Bill, and we hope to see elements of that rise up in the Senate version.
Because if it doesn't, again, this is an every 5-year thing, and we have no idea what Congress or the White House is going to look by then. So the House Ag Committee had their markup. We know Senate Democrats told us what they want to be in their version. Has the Senate Ag Committee done a markup yet? Or
Not yet.
So would that be the next step then?
That'd be the next step. We're
Okay.
hoping to see that later in June or into July.
Oh, I really thought this might be ready earlier instead of getting dragged, closer and closer to the conventions and the presidential election. But at this point, we're just going to have to stay on top of it and see if we can't get two sides to work together on this. Mike Stranz, Vice President for Advocacy for the National Farmers Union. Mike, always great to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking time with us.
Thanks, Pat.
Hans Breitenmoser up in Lincoln County. Hope you get back into the field real soon. Wish you all the best. Thanks for being here this morning, Hans.
You bet. Thanks a lot. You guys appreciate it.
All right. Chad Holmes from Bull Falls Radio is going to join us, tell us what's next on his show on the Civic Media Radio app and in the Wausau area. Coming up next, you're Up North. All right. There we go. We're clear. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it so much.
Glad to do it.
Hi.
Hey. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate you showing up. Thanks, Pat, for all your hard work, and Luke as well.
You bet. You guys, anything develops, let me know right away. Would love to have you back on.
Happy to do it.
All right. See you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Can we touch on Quick Trip real fast?
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. All right, I know I shouldn't do this, starting things off with Chad Holmes, whose show is coming up next on Bull Falls Radio in Wausau, and you can hear it across the Civic Media app. But it would seem that if somebody puts up something on social media and then deletes it, they don't want to talk about it. And unless I'm seeing things wrong, I think this has been deleted. But weren't you telling me you were looking forward to being in a poker tournament? And didn't I see a post along the lines of, why do I enjoy this game? Why do I play this game?
I never deleted it.
Okay.
I stand by my words.
Okay. I just see so many sports things that I must be missing it.
Well, the whole thing was maybe I should have. Usually when I play, I put more than one posting on it, but
yes,
I was so embarrassed by my performance on
Saturday.
There was only one, and it was like, it's one thing that is always it's called the walk of shame. Everybody in a tournament has to walk.
Yes.
Because
please pack up your knives and go. Yes.
There's a point in the tournament where all of your chips are gone. You have to get up, and then all you do is you feel like everybody's looking at you and knows that you're a big loser.
No. Just again, there can only be one first, and like we learned in Talladega Nights, Luke, if you're not first, you're last. Yeah,
exactly. It was fun to do, but man, it was a little bit shorter than I wanted it to be.
But everybody, and I like that you mentioned, that there's always got to be a catchphrase, because of course Donald Trump, of all the other things that he's lucked out in life, got to be the one to go, "You fired," so you can't do that. So we were saying Top Chef is please pack up your knives and go, and there's all, your torch has been extinguished, whatever the case may be.
Sachet away. Yeah, there's some good ones.
Yeah, so that's what they need, is they need a phrase like that for these poker tournaments.
Yeah.
Mr. Holmes, you heard us talking earlier about Quick Trip and adding electric vehicle charging stations, and what are you thinking of that?
Wonderful. But I was really happy at the end of your segment that you said, I know there are some people out there that are yelling at their radio right now that because you were talking to me. I was getting a little annoyed with that love fest for Quick Trip. Dr. Lyerly giving a food recommendation. Everybody's saying, "Oh, wonderful," and you hit it on the head. I real fast. I don't mean to get into the weeds on this.
No.
I'm not willing to give the same benefit of the doubt to Quick Trip and Culver's that they're just giving the money because Republicans were in charge.
Incumbents.
They're playing both sides of the street.
Yep.
That there's an implication there that they don't really believe that the money they're giving is leading to the laws that you were talking about in Louisiana and Alabama, because it's not just strictly they're giving money to folks here in Wisconsin that have been pushing forward legislation that has, I would say, taken away reproductive freedoms from women, but that money, I'm sure, was going to the Republican National Committee and going to people like the folks, the gentleman that you had the soundbite on from Louisiana. So I'm not quite ready to say, okay, they're just playing both sides of the street. They don't really believe in what they're doing in terms of what that money is ultimately leading to, because you look at this 2 years ago where a lot of money went into the Ron Johnson campaign that ultimately gave him a 1-point victory over Mandela Barnes. I think it's important that, yes, hey, it's wonderful that they're willing to take the money that was made possible by wonderful legislation from the current president of the United States. But if it's true that they really want to play both sides of the street, I would like to see them perhaps reward the president for doing something that's going to help their bottom line business over the next decades.
That I understand. And I'm just thinking more of, if you look back in the early 2000s, you'll find a whole lot of contributions to then Governor Jim Doyle, along with folks who were in, when Democrats were in the majority, because those are the people that their lobbyists talk to, the ones that they feel like, if they're not playing the extremes on behalf of the policies that benefit them, that money gets used by candidates, and you can't say, you can't let your support for a candidate be judged by the most extreme thing that candidate does if they're also supporting the more moderate thing that you're doing. And other people rightfully would say, nope, no matter how moderate you may be, if you're supporting a candidate, you are, giving tacit approval to their most extreme thing. So I get the point. I absolutely see the difference.
And also, again, I'm not so naive to realize the whole cynicalness, if that's a word,
cynicism of it. Sure.
Yeah, of the whole process where you're looking out for number one, and you're giving this money so you have somebody's ear to whisper into.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about, again, that is not something that they had on Saturday mornings when they were talking about how a bill was passed. I mean,
You're right. There was no lobbyist in Schoolhouse Rock. That one got edited out.
I did not recall any of the envelopes being passed from folks coming up the steps at the Capitol to the bill itself. I mean, obviously, there's a cynicism that is.
Let me tell this story again. Again, as a brand new legislator, and then somebody who'd reported on politics and knew about money, and I had to raise all kinds of money. I'm very not naive to that at all.
Right.
But there's just this feeling you get as a new legislator when they say, well, so-and-so from the Wisconsin Blank Association is coming in to meet with you. Okay, fine. And you have this conversation, and they talk about, the bills that, they'd like to tell you about for this year, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's all fine. But then like a week later, you're looking at your finance reports and seeing that group just sent in like, a good sized donation. And you just feel weird. You're just like, no, you didn't. I met with you because that's what a good legislator should do, but that's how they feel like the system is supposed to work. And it's unfortunate. Like I said earlier, this whole thing needs to be reformed.
And I completely understand your feelings, because I always go back many years, because Russ Feingold was so, on the forefront of trying to clean up the money. But you remember when he was actually trying to walk the walk, I think it was in the race against Mark Newman. I mean, it goes back so far, where he said, I'm not going to use all that dirty money. It darn near cost him the election. I mean, that's, it's sad but true that if you're trying to set a higher standard, sometimes it comes back and bites you really hard.
Said the poker player who it's like, I don't believe in 4 of a kind, so I'm not going to lay down all 4 of these cards.
It's just not fair. It's not fair. It's like,
right.
Yeah.
You play the rules as they are. And then if it's your game later, then you get to make changes. Chad Holmes, you can hear him weekdays 8 to 10 on Bull Falls Radio and through the Civic Media app. Chad, thanks so much. Have a great day.
You bet. Thank you too, Pat.
Mr. Mathers, thank you so much for your capable job here. And assuming Greg actually wants to leave Washington, D.C., we'll see him tomorrow. But thank you for bringing Aurora by.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, Pat.
All right. And thanks to all of you for joining us as well. Up North News is the Wisconsin digital outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network building a more informed, engaged, and representative America. Have a great Tuesday. See you tomorrow.